Hey guys, lepedaler back with another video. Today I'm going to be comparing the Tacx NEO 2 Smart Trainer to the Wahoo KICKR Smart Trainer. So without further ado, let's get right into this video. Just so you guys know, I do personally use a Tacx NEO Smart Trainer as my daily trainer. Mine's a first generation, but I do have extensive amount of experience with the Wahoo KICKR, so I'm very qualified to make this video. I just want you guys to keep that in mind. Now, the last thing I'll say before we get into this comparison is a big thank you to everyone that's been watching and supporting the channel. I really do appreciate it and do see it, so your efforts do not go unnoticed, and it really helps with me putting out more content. So if you haven't done it, please like this video and subscribe to the channel, because with the growth of this channel in the not so distant future, it's going to help with me putting out better content and get better products to show and review and compare. So, that helps me a lot in terms of growth and just better content. So if you can do that, I'd really appreciate it. So there's two generations of Tacx NEOs. There's the first generation and the second generation. The newest one goes by the name of the Tacx NEO 2T, but for simplicity, we're just going to call it the Tacx NEO. And the first generation Tacx NEO retails for $1,200 USD, and the newest one retails for $1,400 USD. Now comparing that to the Wahoo KICKR, which retails for $1,200 USD, that was released in 2018. So there is a price difference from what's the best that you can get right now in the market for both of these of $200, with the Tacx NEO being slightly more expensive when compared to the Wahoo KICKR. The first thing you'll notice right out of the box with these trainers is that the Wahoo KICKR comes with an 11-speed cassette already mounted, ready to go, where on the Tacx NEO, it does not come with a cassette and you'll have to supply your own. The Tacx NEO comes with a riser block right out of the box to help level your front wheel with the unit itself, whereas on the Wahoo KICKR, it actually is self-adjustable depending on the wheel size, and doesn't require a riser block to make it leveled. When I use both these trainers, I do like to use a riser block because it ensures that the front wheel stays fixed in place and the handlebars are not going to go all over the place. Then again, it should be noted that the Wahoo KICKR is designed to be used in conjunction with the KICKR Climb, so for that reason, integration is a little bit better on the Wahoo KICKR, where the Tacx NEO just has the riser block. Both trainers do an excellent job at accepting a wide variety of different bikes, but it should be noted on the Tacx NEO that the clearance can be sometimes tight depending on how your bike is constructed, and that's especially true on TT bikes, where as the Wahoo KICKR and how it's designed, it doesn't really have those limitations. So depending on your bike specifications, you can run into problems in terms of clearance. But on the Tacx, you can always reach out to them and ask if your bike would be compatible, and vice versa. You should always do that just to ensure that even if you're on the Wahoo KICKR or the Tacx NEO, that your bike would be fine. But that's just an extra safety precaution that I like to do when making a purchase. Now, the Tacx NEO is constructed out of a hard plastic, whereas on the Wahoo KICKR it is steel, but both of them do have a good solid construction, and I don't really see a difference in terms of quality, and in either one being stronger or more solid than each other. Now, in terms of transportation and ease of movability, I would have to give it to the Wahoo KICKR, just because it not only has a handle, but it compacts very nice and is very intuitive to use. Now, on the Tacx NEO, it's very tricky because it doesn't have a handle. It's not very intuitive to compact and fold up, and it is very, very difficult to figure out a good way of compacting it down if you do want to transport it. So I would have to give just the ease of moving around. The handle on the Wahoo KICKR just makes it so much nicer. Now we're getting into the guts of both smart trainers, so listen up. On the Wahoo KICKR, you do get a 16-pound physical flywheel, whereas on the Tacx NEO, it is a virtual flywheel controlled by magnets. So one, you actually have a physical flywheel, and the other one, you have one that's controlled by magnets, which is simulating the resistance and the gradients. As previously mentioned, I do use the Tacx NEO as my everyday trainer, so in terms of climbs and descents and erg mode, it does a very good job at simulating all of that accurately and very smooth, and just a very good overall ride quality. Now, this is also true on the Wahoo KICKR. It does an excellent job as well at creating the most realistic road experience, and that's not only because it is smooth, but it is also realistic and reliable. Now, this is the part of the video where I would ask you guys to like this video and subscribe to the channel, because I would love to reach out to Wahoo and get them to send me out a unit to make a really good comparison to the Tacx NEO, which would be amazing content for you guys. So as you guys support the channel, I really do hope to bump up the quality of the content. So if you guys could kindly do that, I'd greatly appreciate it. The following points are exclusive to the Tacx NEO because of its virtual flywheel that's controlled by magnets. So when you're actually descending, it can actually simulate upwards of 5% downward descent, which is super cool because the flywheel will actually spin as if you were coasting down a hill, which is cool because if you're using an app such as Zwift that can actually simulate that very nicely when you climb a hill and descend it, it brings that extra realism that you don't get indoors with other trainers on the market. So I really do like that feature. And on top of that, not only do you get that realism, but in terms of road vibrations, that's exclusive to Tacx NEO. So you might be asking, what's road vibration simulation? And basically what that is that because of the virtual flywheel that's controlled by magnets, the trainer can actually simulate different road conditions. So it can simulate wooden planks, it can simulate cobbles, it can simulate bricks. So it will actually change the road vibrations on the trainer, so you can actually feel as if you're riding on cobbles, or if you're riding on wood, or if you're riding on brick. And if used properly, like in Zwift, it really brings the extra realism that you don't get with any other trainer on the market. So I feel like that's very unique and probably the coolest feature on the Tacx NEO that you do not get on the Wahoo KICKR. Now the following point I'm going to make in terms of Wahoo is that on the Wahoo KICKR, you can actually use it in conjunction with the KICKR Climb, where you can't use the KICKR Climb with the Tacx NEO. And what the KICKR Climb does is it actually simulates the incline. So if you're climbing, it can actually go up and it will make you feel as if you're going up, which I think is really cool as well. So in terms of trainer and realism that it provides, I would have to give it to the Tacx NEO because it does have that road simulation built into it. But in terms of ensemble, which doesn't come with the trainer but works with the trainer, the KICKR Climb is a game changer as well. So that's just one thing I wanted to give you guys information about. Now the Tacx NEO doesn't require any electricity to function. The only feature that's lost when it's not plugged in is what I was talking about with the downward descent, where it can simulate that flywheel simulates as if you're just coasting, whereas on the Wahoo KICKR, it needs to be plugged in to work. The Tacx NEO has a max power of 2500 watts with an accuracy of plus or minus 1%, whereas on the Wahoo KICKR, it has a max power capacity of 2200 watts with an accuracy of plus or minus 2%. The max gradient that can be simulated on the Tacx NEO is upwards of 25%, and on the Wahoo KICKR, the max gradient that can simulate is 20%. The Tacx NEO requires no calibration, and I can really vouch that it does stay accurate. I've tested it with power meters I've had on my bike, so it doesn't need any calibration. And on the Wahoo KICKR, you do need to calibrate it, but it's not something that you have to do every ride. You can get away with probably once a month to once every 2 months, and it's very accurate as well. Now another unique feature that the Tacx NEO has is that you can check your right and left sided power, but it can only be done on the Tacx app. Apps like Zwift don't use that information or that feature, so for me it's not that big of a deal. On the Wahoo KICKR you don't have that, but then again, if all your training's done like me mostly on Zwift, you won't have that ability to use that feature, so you're not really missing out if you do have the Wahoo KICKR. Now, I already talked about construction where the Tacx NEO is built out of a hard plastic and the Wahoo KICKR is made out of steel. But one thing that should be noted is that on the Tacx NEO, there is a little bit of flex in the unit, which really does a good job at simulating that flex you do get on the road from side to side, and does help to bring a little bit more of a realism experience when you do sprints. But I do kind of get sketched out sometimes that I'm going to break the unit because it's moving too much side to side, like there's a little bit sometimes too much flex. But then again, I'm reminded that that's how it's designed, so I shouldn't be too worried. Or on the Wahoo KICKR, because it's such a solid machine and it's made out of steel, you don't get any flex, which is really nice if you do really want to try to do some monster sprints or some monster efforts. There's a little bit more comfort knowing that it's built very solid. But like I said, the Tacx NEO is designed to be like that, so there isn't a worry if it does flex because it's purposely designed to. Both these trainers do come with their own apps, but all of my training is done on Zwift, so I've had no problems linking both of these trainers to Zwift, and I've always had a good experience whenever having to ride on Zwift with these trainers. So I'll give you guys a summary of each trainer. So for the Tacx NEO, it has a virtual flywheel, which is very quiet. It is self-powered. There's no calibration required. The road terrain simulation is a game changer, I would have to say, and it is accurate to plus or minus 1%. And there's a little bit of flex in it that makes it really realistic if you're putting down a monster effort or a monster sprint. Now to summarize the Wahoo KICKR, it is really well built. It is made out of steel with a 16-pound physical flywheel, which makes it extremely quiet. It creates a really good road feel, so it does a very good job at creating a very realistic road experience. It is compatible with many bikes just because of its design. It doesn't have any clearance problems. It is compatible with the KICKR Climb, which I mentioned previously, which is the device where you attach your front fork, it can actually simulate gradient, which I think is a game changer if you do have the budget and you want to create the most realistic indoor experience. You know, that's really great to see, and that technology, if you can use it, makes indoor riding totally more realistic, and it has an accuracy of plus or minus 2%. And the coolest thing is, if you do want to save some money up front, it does come with an 11-speed cassette already included, where you don't have to put an old cassette on or have to purchase a new one. Now, my final thoughts when comparing both these trainers to one another is that they are both great trainers. So whether you have the Tacx NEO or the Wahoo KICKR, you're going to have a great experience indoors, just because these are both top of the line trainers that do an excellent job at simulating the road. So whether you're using Zwift or Trainer Road or Sufferfest, in terms of training, both these trainers are going to be capable of doing what you need to get done. But the only thing I really have to stress is realism. And I find that the Wahoo KICKR, now you can't really fault the Tacx NEO for this, but the fact that the Wahoo KICKR can be used in conjunction with the KICKR client, which is what I said previously with the unit where you attach your fork and it can simulate gradient, I think that is a game changer. So even though the Tacx NEO has the road simulation, I think that's cool. But then again, in Zwift, where these features are really used to the full extent, you're not really riding on these terrains for that long. You're usually riding on paved. So, you'll have the normal simulation sensation that you're used to. Now, yes, you can go to specific parts on Zwift and get that experience. But like I said, I don't feel like that's that significant, because, 90% of the riding that I do is on road in Zwift. So I don't really use that feature on my Tacx NEO. But with the KICKR Climb, there's tons of time where I'm changing gradients from 2% to 3% to 5%. And having the Wahoo KICKR be able to be used with the KICKR Climb and simulate that, I think that is a game changer in terms of realism. So I would love to get my hands on one and really test it out, and you see what the hype is all about. So those are my final thoughts, is that either trainer is amazing. I've had both amazing experiences. I haven't yet ridden with the KICKR Climb, so I'm really curious on to see how that is, but both these trainers are really good, and I hope this video really explained the key differences between both trainers. But I would have to give the edge for realism to the KICKR, just because the KICKR Climb is crazy. So if you guys did enjoy the video, please smash the like button and subscribe to the channel. Like I said, it really helps with me putting out more content like this and the growth of the channel. And until the next one, keep on pedaling.